Morning. Wow. You guys are awake. Feels good. What didn't feel great this week was Jamaica. Jamaica was on my mind a lot this week. I was thinking back to years ago. I sat on a roof with a Jamaican man, and we were on the last step. We built this house, not we. He and his team had. I had been there like a mule, a pack mule, carrying stuff to them. But we were on the last step. I was on the roof, and we had this mallet. And he and I were in charge of malleting nails into this roof. And I'd, like I said, been carrying stuff. And look at me. That doesn't go that well. And so when I got up there, it was like I had swallowed like a charm of hummingbirds or something. My hand was just, every time I'd it was like whack-a-mole. I couldn't hit the nail. It was like the most pathetic thing. And this guy builds houses like every week of his life. And he was turning red. He was a very dark black man, but I could see him turning red because he was like looking at me like, what is this guy? He's so weak. And so I think that in order that I could save my dignity, he said, hey, do you think maybe we should take a break? And I was like, I don't need a break. If you need a break, sure, we can take a break. I remember we sat with our legs dangling over that newly built house with the roof not quite on yet. And we just shared each other's lives. And it was so interesting for him because he was getting ready to be a dad. And then this week I was thinking that roof probably is not affixed to that house any longer. This week, I thought that as Hurricane Melissa stormed toward Jamaica, and we have some friends down there, they shared on this stage, and they were preparing for disaster, and they were also, this is real, they were preparing for death. Now, the hurricane changed course and intensity a bit, and it spared the casualty rate. I mean, massive destruction, but it wasn't as much death as they thought, but they really thought they're going to die. They're getting their next of kin ready. They were ready. They're going into this storm of death. And as I was thinking of them, I felt that familiar shake again. It wasn't in my arm this time. It's kind of in my heart because life is a challenge. And moments like that, even if you're going through them like secondhand, it's like you realize that age and pain, they lurk. Like I got a birthday coming up, and my wife, she went all out this year. I almost feel like boastful saying this. I probably shouldn't say it from stage, but I got this all-inclusive ticket to my dermatologist to look at some spots, a full body scan. For some spots that might be cancerous, and everyone's laughing here like, they know how that goes. Because as you age, every spot could be cancerous. That's how it goes. She sent me a text, she's like, got you in, full body, happy birthday. I mean, that's it, that's the big surprise. That's how the storms go, they blow in, that our roofs and our doors are blown off and blown in. But does our house stand against the pounding rains and the punishing winds? And that's where we are in Acts. It's this tail end of Acts. And it's a storm unrelenting that blows into Paul's life. I think for me, at least, and that's why we're going to do what we're going to do today, it's really easy to read this like a comic book. And like Paul's like this action hero. And it's not super sad or long or hard. It's like, oh, he got beat up. Cool. He probably didn't feel it. And I don't actually feel that he got beat up. And then he's like spending nights in jail. And it's like, oh, just a couple nights. Not that big a deal. Until you go to jail and then you realize a couple nights is a long time. That all this is very real for him. And so what I want to do is just read the narrative, and we're going to try and get through a lot. I'll paraphrase some. Good luck downstairs who's keeping up with verses, because I'm going to jump into some verses. I'm going to paraphrase, but all this is in the Bible. You can look it up on your own. And with it, we're going to hammer down 4 takeaways and then hang 2, I think, very important scriptures into our life from this. So chapter 23 begins this way. Verse 1, it says, Paul looked straight at the Sanhedrin and said, my brothers, I have fulfilled my duty to God in all good conscience to this day. Context, the Sanhedrin, who's that? So that's the Jewish ruling council. He's in Jerusalem, he gets taken by Rome, arrested so they wouldn't kill him, and then he has to face his own people first. And we have, kind of different for us because we have separation of church and state. Theirs is this. Church was the state and the state was the church. So these were the religious leaders. This was like the lead pastor of the day in some ways of all of Jerusalem, but they would also take the court cases. They would adjudicate the law. That's what they would do. And so they're doing this, and Paul says, I have good conscience, like I haven't done anything really against the law, and I've done anything against our people, and I feel safe in that. Verse 2. At this time, the high priest Ananias, not the one from earlier, this is a different Ananias, super corrupt guy, you can find him historically, ordered those standing near Paul to strike him on the mouth. Then Paul said to him, God will strike you, you whitewashed wall. You sit there to judge me according to the law, yet you yourself violate the law by commanding that I be struck. It's pretty self-evident what he's saying there, but just in case someone missed it, whitewashed wall, what that is we do it with our house sometimes. Something breaks, it's like, duct tape. And they just hang a picture over it, no big deal. And then you go to sell the house, and someone's like, did they just duct tape that? And then they like knock on the wall, the whole thing falls over? That's what he's saying. It's like this decrepit wall, this decrepit building, and you just take some paint and paint over it. That'll do, instead of fixing it. Jesus went one step further. He called these same rulers whitewashed tombs. You can do whatever you want to a tomb. You can bedazzle it however you want. You can tie-dye it, you can paint it, you can make it beautiful. Put all the fixings in front of it, and all that's within it is death. That's a pretty good word to the church, to us. Are we whitewashed walls? We come in, we go to church, we say our things, we read our Bible, whatever, but inside, it's just anger and envy and judgment and just death is coming from us. That's what he's saying. He just calls them out. He calls them these whitewashed walls, and it's the head honcho he calls this. So in verse 4, they clap back and they say, those who were standing near Paul said, how dare you insult God's high priest? And Paul replied, brothers, I did not realize that he was the high priest, for it is written, do not speak evil about the ruler of your people. Now, scholars, commentators are divided on this. Some people think Paul's been gone for 30 years, and they don't have like Instagram. He doesn't actually know what the high priest looks like. So he truly made a mistake here. I don't think so. I think Paul's digging one step, like just a little bit deeper into these guys. I think he's going after him again. I think Paul's a pretty intuitive guy, and this is the guy who's probably wearing a little bit different hat than everyone else, and he also says, hit him in the mouth, and they all hit him in the mouth. I think he knows this is the head honcho, and so what he's doing there is like, I'm sorry, I didn't know. If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. That didn't look like a duck or quack like a duck because that person who's the high priest isn't following the law. So I didn't know it was him because I thought the high priest would be one who follows the law. And that's why he adds in there, like, I would never disobey the law. I didn't know I was breaking the law because of the way he's acting. I think he gets him pretty good there. I think it's a great play by, but Paul is like, man, he's up against it here, but he's still like calm and intelligent, using his gifts. And then we get one of 3 funny scenes in Acts. I think there are 3 funny scenes in Acts. This is one of the funny ones. I was reading this actually like a few weeks ago. My wife looked over and was like, what are you reading? And I was on my phone. She thought I was like on social media, so I was like, Acts. I was just like chuckling to myself. I'll give you the other funny one because we missed it. Kelly, she's too nice, so she didn't do it. If you go a left turn 2 pages, you come to Acts 20. And this, I think, is a really good one. It's one of my life passages. I have 2 life passages. This is one for Sundays. The rest are Monday through Saturday. The first life passage is, I think, in maybe 2 Kings. But there's this prophet. I'd call him like a speaker at a church, a prophet. He walks out of the woods and he's bald, and these like upstart young men who hate God start making fun of his baldness, and then some bears come out and eat them. That's one of my life passages, Monday through Saturday. Respect the bald, Jamal. Amen. Yeah, you get it. All right. So that's an important one, but this is my Sunday one. This is my Sunday one. So that's for the rest of the week. Honor the bald men in your life. Here's the other one. This is Sundays, 20 verse 7. On the first day of the week. That's church. That's Sunday. That's what we do. We, this is Luke writing, came together to break bread. Paul spoke to the people, and because he intended to leave the next day, kept on talking until midnight. Luke is complaining on his boy here. Like his sermon's too long. That's what Luke's saying. If you don't believe me, keep reading. There were many lamps in the upstairs room where we were meeting. Seated in a window was a young man named Eutychus, who was sinking into a deep sleep as Paul talked on and on. Paul's catching a stray from Luke. This is why I know the Bible's real, because why would you put this? He's just like bagging on his friend here. Talked on and on. And when Eutychus was sound asleep, he fell to the ground from the 3rd story and was picked up dead. That escalated. This dude falls asleep in church, not listening to the preacher, and dies. Okay? So listen. Now, I'll give you the end of it because that sounds like kind of extreme at first. Paul runs down, brings the guy up, puts his arms around him, and says, don't be alarmed, he's alive. 11. Then he went upstairs again and broke bread and ate. After talking until daylight, he was supposed to stop at midnight. He's like, now I got him. The last guy who didn't listen to me died, so I'm going to talk another 6 hours. He just kept it rolling. The people took the young man home alive and were greatly comforted. It doesn't say why they were comforted, if the guy was alive or just because Paul stopped talking. I don't know. But this is my refuge on a Sunday, so don't come up to me after this, like, you went long. It's one service. There is no long. I'm going to go to midnight. That's what I'm going to do. I dare you to fall asleep. Luckily, this is the first floor. You can't fall out. Okay. Here's the second funny scene that happens, and I love this. So he's got the Sanhedrin. And who's in the Sanhedrin? Sanhedrin are the rulers, but in the rulers, it's kind of like our House of Representatives. There are Republicans. There are Democrats. And it's not quite that extreme, but actually maybe it's even worse because this is a theological issue, but there are conservatives and there are liberals. And the conservatives are called the Pharisees. And the Pharisees believe the Old Testament, take it pretty literally, and believe in miracles and also believe in the resurrection of the dead. that we will die, but there will be an afterlife. Sanhedrin, they're liberal. They say, nope, once dead, always dead. There is no resurrection. That's the thing. That's their issue, that they want to kill each other over that issue. And so Paul's before this group. They're trying to decide. They all hate him. They have that in common. He's the enemy. And they're looking at him. Then Paul, verse 6, knowing that some of them were Sadducees and the other Pharisees, called out in the Sanhedrin, my brothers, I'm a Pharisee. And the Pharisees are like, oh no, he's siding with us. We don't want this guy. Descended from the Pharisees. I stand on trial because of the hope of the resurrection of the dead. So the enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's what happens. So when he said this, a dispute breaks out between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. And all of a sudden, they don't care about Paul. They care about each other. They just start going after each other. It's this beautiful thing that happens. And then verse 9, there was a great uproar, and some of the teachers of the law, who were Pharisees, stood up and argued vigorously. We find nothing wrong with this man. Do you remember, like 5 minutes ago, they wanted to kill this man. And all of a sudden, he's on their team. Like, Paul is just like, plays it. It's like an old cartoon. This is like, if you go home at Thanksgiving, maybe you're like 23, 24, you're in that stage, you're trying to find yourself, you bring a new partner home for Thanksgiving, the whole extended family's there, and they're just going at you. They're making fun of your partner. You got a nose ring. They don't like your politics. They don't like where you live. You just say, Donald Trump, and then you do the Homer Simpson and back into the shrubs, and the whole family it's gone. They don't even see you anymore. I hate him. I love him, whatever, and you can just rest. That's basically what Paul does. He finds the most polarizing thing he can do, and he brings it to the surface, and they forget about him. Just wonderful technique that he uses. And again, he's calm, he's smart. And now they're with him, they said, what if a spirit or angel has spoken to him? Verse 10, the dispute became so violent that the commander, Roman guy, who's like, I don't understand any of these people, he was afraid Paul would be torn to pieces by them. So he ordered the troops to go down and take him away from them by force and bring him into the barracks. They just take Paul back in jail. It didn't go so well with the leaders. The only way Paul could get out of them killing him was get them to turn and try and kill each other. And he's causing dissension among his people. He doesn't love what's going on here. And now he's seized by Rome again. So, recap where we've been the last few weeks, where Paul's been the last few days. He came to Jerusalem. That's like the Mecca. That's where you want to go. It's the pilgrimage. It's the sacred land. It's the holy city. It's where Jesus died. It's where Jesus resurrected. You want to go there. That's where his people are. He's excited to be there. I want to go home. And he gets there. And then his people try to kill him. And then he stands before his people, and he tries to win them over with his rhetoric, and he gives his best sermon ever, and he gets booed off the stage. And then he's bruised, he's broken, he's lonely. He faces the leaders, and they're dead to him. They want nothing to do with him. They disown him. They want him dead. He has no freedom. He has no possessions. He's in the chains of the mortal enemy of the people, Rome. Like I've heard it said, being poor is hard. Some of us know that. Some of us are still there. Some of us are poor. Being poor is hard. But what's harder is being poor and becoming rich and then losing it all and becoming poor again. Like they do these stories of lottery people or people in the NBA who, have this gift and then they have all this money for a season and they lose it all, give it all away, gamble it all, and then they're broke, and it's just terrible for them because they've seen what comfort looks like. They've seen what the other side, that's kind of what Paul goes through. Because during the missionary journeys of Paul, he has action, and he's an action junkie. He goes to these places and he has freedom to move about. He's going to this town and then to this town and then to this town. He's got a team around him. He's managing. There's adventure. There's movement. He goes and preaches in front of crowds like this, and every time, some people aren't going to like him, but every time some people are going to join him and become disciples of the living God. He just sees that over and over again, and now he's restricted. He's in chains. He can't go anywhere. He can't go outside for a walk. There's no fruit coming from his life. Every crowd he talks to ends up just fighting each other. And he's got to be thinking in this moment, my God, why have you forsaken me? You ever feel that? When the storm blows in? Maybe it's sickness. There's probably someone in this big crowd, your body just hurts. All the time. You've gone to this specialist, that specialist, that specialist, that. And every day, waking up is hard. Rolling over in your bed becomes hard all the time. Or maybe it's relationships. That you used to have a family in a house, and now you're lonely in an apartment because all of that broke. It happens. Relationships blow up and get ruined and get sullied. Or for some of us, it's you have a son or daughter, and you've poured everything into that son or daughter. You have raised them. You have loved them. You've given your time. You've given your treasure. You've given your talent to that person. And now they're kind of coming into their own, and they totally disavow all of that. And they don't live by your morals. They don't follow your codes. They don't love your life. They don't see you. They don't talk to you. They don't return the text. Here's one. Grief. I don't like to do this. I'm going to do this just so we see that we're real people too. In the last, let's say, 6 years, we'll just do a show of hands. In the last 6 years, how many of you have said goodbye to someone for good, buried someone, dearly departed? Go ahead, show your hands. Let's see it. Now look around this room. You're going to put your hands down. That's real people on a real journey. We don't talk about that part of the journey, right? The hurricanes are seasonal. They come every year. Pain does too. It might not be as predictable, but it comes. And Paul is alone in the storm. Or is he? Verse 11. The following night, the Lord stood near Paul. That's good. The following night, the Lord stood near Paul and said, "Take courage. As you have testified about me in Jerusalem, so you must testify in Rome. That I cannot fix your cancer, I cannot solve your grief, I cannot take your pain, but I can offer you a God who stands near." Will you let him be enveloped by the Comforter in your time of need? Because he knows it's your time of need. He feels that it's a time of need, and he's with you. He's known a time of need, and he's felt a time of need. I love when he says, "Lo, I'm with you even to the end of the age." We are at the end of the age. Every day is the end of the age. We are the end. We are the precipice of time, the present tense is. And then tomorrow will be a new precipice, and tomorrow will be a new, and tomorrow will be a new. But right now we stand at the edge, the end of the age. And he says, "I'm with you." Paul is comforted and reminded, I'm not done with you. And we can take two things from that. One, he's not done with you either. That's why you're still here. That he has something for you. It might be running out the string on what little you have left of life, but you're going to run it out and suffer well, and it's going to be a beautiful thing for people around you. It might be a whole lot of things. It might be persevering through something to something else. But he's not done with you. The second thing we can take from this is he's actually never done with us. He never is. That Jesus is not transactional. He's transcendent, above transaction. That's what I love in KidCrest. The phrasing they use in KidCrest is that Jesus is your forever friend. And we don't say that as adults because it feels like dorky or corny or something, but isn't that wonderful to have a forever friend? Someone who gives companion and love, who will get down beside you, sit on the edge of that house with your legs dangling and say, "I'm with you." Do you need something? Do you need food? Do you need care? Maybe you just need my arm around you. I'm with you. I'm not trying to solve everything, fix everything. I'm just with you. And here's a weird aside from this passage too. If I'm Paul right now, after that, you know what I'm doing? I'm like bungee jumping or bull riding, skydiving, public speaking, whatever it is gives you fear. Because God is taking him to Rome. You know where he's not? Rome. You see that? He, for a season, is immortal. Because God's a promise keeper. So if God has told you he's going to do a thing in your life, and he hasn't done the thing, he's doing a thing and will do it. We can rest. He will bring it to fruition, to completion. He's getting to it. And Paul's bulletproof in this moment because of that promise, and he needs to be. Here we go, verse 12. The next morning, some Jews formed a conspiracy and bound themselves with an oath not to eat or drink until they killed Paul. More than 40 men were involved in this plot. They went to the chief priests and the elders and said, "We have taken a solemn oath not to eat anything until we have killed Paul." They don't know about the promise. The best way for them to kill Paul is to get a taxi cab and escort him to Rome and then try it. He ain't dying until he gets to Rome. And these guys are like, "We're not going to eat or drink." This is probably like a laugh track in heaven. The angels watch this eating popcorn. There's like, these guys don't even know. These fools don't even know. They're like hiding in the bushes. Is he coming yet? It's like when you play hide and seek and you don't know the other person quit and you're still hiding. My kid, he had this. This is how these guys remind me of. He was like 5 or something, and we had done something to push him over the edge, like told him he has to eat breakfast before school. It was that, we just abusive parents or something. And he said, "That's it, I'm running away." And he went up and he got this little backpack. It's a superhero thing on wheels, and he had it all ready. I think there was a blanket in there, 4 stuffed animals, and a book. And then he had it, and I was like, "Let me get the door for you, Chief." And I opened the door, pat him on the rear end on the way out. Bon voyage. And he's walking. We get a text a few minutes later, and it's from a neighbor. He's like, "MJ's walking down the street with a bag." And we're like, "Cool, yeah, he ran away." They're like, "Oh." And then we get another one. Someone's driving their kid to daycare, like, "Hey, your kid's like half a mile away." And they're like, "Yeah, he ran away." It's like, and then it starts raining a little. And so we get in the car and we drive over, and we don't even have to say a word. The door just opens, puts his bag in, and gets in the car. We're like, where were you going? He's like, oh, I was going to Hudson's house. And we're like, well, Hudson's in Florida for 4 days. And he's like, I would have figured it out. No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't have figured it out. And that's how we are when we go against the plan of the living God. It's senseless. It's feckless. There's nothing in it. Well, that's what they're saying, that they're going to like lay in wait and they're going to get Paul and they're not going to eat or drink beforehand. It's like, no, you're not. You guys, you'll be eating sandwiches tomorrow because you're going to get hungry and he's going to be off on the road again. Now, then when you and the Sanhedrin, this 15, petition the commander to bring him before you on the pretext of wanting more accurate information about this case, we'll kill him before he gets there. This is like so sinister. This is the government doing terrible things. Now, God intervenes and acts a whole bunch of time on Paul's behalf. He does it through his citizenship. He does it through earthquakes. He does it through shipwrecks. This might be the weirdest way he does it right here. This is the weirdest way. 16. Does it through family. But when the son of Paul's sister heard of this plot, he went into the barracks and told Paul. Did we know Paul had a sister? Nope. Do we know he had a nephew? Nope. God did. Because he's provident. What I picture happening is this kid, because he said he's a young man, he's a boy. I think he's like in the arcade there at Jerusalem, and they want to meet somewhere like incognito, and so they meet to hatch this plan. They're like playing Miss Pac-Man. He's over there on the asteroid machine, and they start talking about it, and he's like, that's my uncle. And so he just like ends the game, and then he walks out, and he goes over to the barracks. And he tells Paul, like, these guys are laying in wait. There's like 40 of them. They're going to kill you. They're not going to eat until they do. They're in the bushes. They look pathetic, but they're going to try this thing. And Paul calls the guards over. Why can he call the guards over? He's a Roman citizen. Again, his citizenship is playing into this. And he says, hey, can you take this boy to the commander? So this boy goes to the commander. And he says, hey, there's these 40 guys. They're going to get him. And this all leads to the other funny scene in Acts. So the commander says, don't tell anyone. He doesn't want the boy to tell anyone because then they might go after the boy or they might change their plan. He kind of plays chess where they're playing checkers. He's like, we're going to leave at 9 p.m. tonight, verse 23. And the commander called his centurions and ordered them. Here's the funny part. Get ready a detachment of 200 soldiers, 70 horsemen, 200 spearmen to go to Caesarea at 9 o'clock tonight. Provide horses, not a horse, horses. He's rolling a carriage. Horses for Paul so that he may be taken safely to Governor Felix. Now, the reason why I think this is funny is because the equivalency of the day. I looked it up, 80, 50s, kind of in that range. During times of peace, a senator would have 10 to 50 bodyguards around them. A governor, 50 to 200. An emperor, during peace times, would be surrounded by 200 to 500 troops. Paul gets 470. B.B. King had an album, Riding with the King, is Clapton and King. And this Paul right here, he's riding with the king, he's riding as the king. That this prisoner in chains for the Lord is like flying to Rome on a private jet. That's the picture here. Everyone in the villages had to be looking like, who is that? There's some celebrity at the center of this. He has the might of Rome behind him, his greatest enemy, and it's Paul. Because that's what God does. They think it's like Taylor Swift rolling, it's Paul. That's who it is. This guy who has no possessions, who's beaten up, who's bloodied, is in the center of everything. Bulletproof as can be, riding like a king. Isn't that what God does? I love the Seuss book, Oh, the Places You Will Go. That's what God does. Oh, the places you will go. And so Paul heads off to Caesarea. The guy who sends him, Lysias, sends this letter. This is cool because it's a historical document. It says, Claudius Lysias, this is 26, to His Excellency, Governor Felix, greetings. This man, talking about Paul, who's in all these people protecting him, this man was seized by the Jews and they were about to kill him. But I came with my troops and rescued him. He's kind of fudging a little bit. He's rounding up on himself. Makes sense. For I had learned that he is a Roman citizen, as you're about to flog him. That's okay. I wanted to know why they were accusing him, so I brought him to their Sanhedrin. I found the accusations had to do with questions about their law. There was no charge against them that deserved death or imprisonment. Who else did this happen to? Pilate found no charge against Jesus, so kicked the can down the road and passed him off to someone else. And now it's Paul getting to live the same thing. Again, we imitate Paul as he imitates Christ. Here, he's imitating Christ in his sufferings. He's like checking every box. He doesn't mean to, but he's like checking every box. And so he's taken to this guy, Felix. We'll go to 24. 24:1 says, 5 days later, the high priest Ananias went down to Caesarea where Paul is. I bet he traveled alone. He didn't have a bunch of army with him. With some of the elders and a lawyer named Tertullus. Now, I'm going to require everyone here to come up with their own lawyer joke. I have 17 down. I'm not going to do any because we have lawyers in here and they're great. I don't want to offend them, but lawyer jokes are great. Here's a lawyer, and he's going to play right into the joke. This is Tertullus, and they brought their charges against Paul before the governor. When Paul was called in, Tertullus presented his case before Felix. Listen to this guy, this lawyer up. He says to Felix, "We have enjoyed a long period of peace under you, and your foresight has brought about reforms in this nation." Now, real quick word about Felix. Total brigand, total dork, total doofus. He was a Nepo hire. He was a lowly person whose brother had risen in power, and so he had been placed in charge of this, and he was completely corrupt and inept. Everyone knew it. He was a brute. He was a thug. That's what he was. He's a mafia lord. No one likes this guy. But here's the lawyer, just like puckering up. He's just kissing up to him. "And your foresight has brought about reforms in this nation, everywhere and in every way, most excellent Felix. We acknowledge this with profound gratitude. But in order not to weary you further, I would request that you be kind enough to hear us briefly. We found this man to be a troublemaker, stirring up riots among the Jews, which he didn't do, all over the world. He is a ringleader of the Nazarene sect, he wasn't, and he even tried to desecrate the temple, he didn't. So we seized him. By examining him yourself, you'll be able to learn the truth about all these charges we are bringing against him." And then verse 9, "The other Jews joined in the accusations, asserting that these things were true." And then Paul gives his word. I won't list it all, but he gives his word. There's no flattery. It's respectful, but there's no flattery. And here's what he says. Here's what I'm condemned of. I worship God, I believe in the resurrection, and I've caused no trouble. That's what he says. He says it in more words than that, but that's what he says. I worship God, I believe in the resurrection, I've caused no trouble. So Felix hears everything, and then Felix, dope as he is, says he was well acquainted with the way, he knew about Christianity, verse 22. "Adjourn the proceedings. When Lysias the commander comes," he said, "I will decide your case." And he ordered the centurion to keep Paul under guard, but to give him freedom and permit his friends to take care of his needs. So does he think he's guilty? Do you take a guilty man and say, okay, we're not going to put him in jail, we're going to put him under guard, he's like under house arrest, and his friends can hang out with him? Take care of his needs, make sure he's... No. He knows he's innocent. But he's still held. Can you imagine how frustrating this is to be held, even though the guy knows you're innocent? So, 24, why does Felix keep him? We'll get why right here. Several days later, Felix came with his wife Drusilla, who was Jewish. He sent for Paul and listened to him as he spoke about faith in Christ Jesus. So Paul has them in, and what does he do? The gospel. Also, here's some things about Felix and Drusilla. Drusilla was 15 years old. And Felix had traded out 2 other wife models. As soon as his wife gets a little bit older, he trades it out for a younger model. That's what he does. So he finds this 15-year-old who's good looking and says, you're going to be my wife. This lady, she's 15. She goes to be his wife, even though it's against the law for her to marry someone who's a non-Jew. She does it because he's got money, because he has influence. These are not great people. These people have some issues, especially issues with like righteousness, issues with self-control. And there's going to be consequences for that behavior, all right? So what does Paul talk to them about? He's trying to get out of jail with them. Paul, he doesn't mince words. What does he talk to them about? As Paul, verse 25, talked about righteousness, self-control, and the judgment to come, Felix was afraid. He's like, hey, that's your wife? Well, let me tell you about adultery. Let me tell you about this. Let me tell you about self-control. Let me tell you about... Oh, Paul just goes right. That's why he's afraid. He's scared of that because like, whoa, he's saying exactly what we do. And he says, that's enough for now. You may leave. And this is one of the saddest verses in Acts. When I find it convenient, I will send for you. If you are waiting to find it convenient to invite Jesus to be Lord of your life, you will be waiting forever because it will never be convenient. Jesus doesn't come promising convenience. In fact, Jesus does the opposite. He promises inconvenience. He is a massively inconvenient God. There is never a good time to make him Lord, but it's always the right time. Don't we play this game? Some of us are playing it right now. In your teenage years, you're like, well, I'll get serious about my faith in my 20s. And then you're in your 20s like, well, I'll get serious once I have a family because then I'll have kids and I'll want to raise them up. Then I'll get serious. And you're in your 30s, you're like, right now I'm a little bit too busy. In church, it's early. I don't know. And maybe I'll do it in my 40s. And in your 40s, you got stuff going on, life, career. You kind of want to make money first. And then 50s, you want to save all that money. I'll do it when I retire. And then you wait till retirement and you're like, well, I'm just going to... And you never get with Jesus. And that's what this guy does. He says, yeah, I'm going to get to you when it's convenient. We'll see. Time is coming, and he just keeps going. But why doesn't he get to him? 26. At the same time, he was hoping that Paul would offer him a bribe. So he sent for him frequently and talked with him. If I release him, I won't have a chance for a payoff. And what is this guy's God? Not the real God, not the potential of a real God, not a relationship with a real God, the God of money, power, influence. That's what he's after. He thinks Paul's going to give him a bribe. How does this end? 27. When 2 years had passed, Felix was succeeded by Porcius Festus. But because Felix wanted to grant favor to the Jews, he left Paul in prison. We can read Paul's plight and be like, man, just a momentary affliction. Yeah, it is a momentary affliction, but it's a long momentary affliction. 2 years, he's just hanging out, waiting for this guy to do the right thing, and this guy doesn't. Remember in the Old Testament, this happens to a guy named Joseph. He's in prison, and then the guy's like, I'm going to remind the king about you and what you've done for me and how you can figure out dreams. I'm going to tell the king. And then he forgets. Paul's forgotten. This is when the doctor's appointment turns into a diagnosis. You think you're going for a 30-minute checkup, and all of a sudden it's going to change the rest of your life. That the storm comes, Paul is beaten, he's broken, he's tested, he's neglected for years. 4, 5, 6 years, this is the way his life goes. He's not walking out. He's not going to find some freedom. He's not going to go back to the way it was. This is his plight now. So what do we do with it? 4 quick takeaways. First takeaway that we need to hear and hear again. I know it's not that fun to hear, but there are storms. No one is shielded from the storms. In fact, every person in here is facing something hard. The hardest thing you face is the hardest thing you face. It might not be as hard as the thing your neighbor's facing, but to you, the hardest thing is the hardest thing. There are storms. Jesus says it rains on the righteous and the unrighteous alike. Your storm isn't because you're a bad guy or a good guy. Your storm is because you're a guy, you're a person, you're a man, you're a woman. So we will have storms in our life. Second takeaway is that sometimes these storms do blindside us. They come out of nowhere. Also, sometimes these storms stay. Paul just went home to Jerusalem not knowing exactly what would befall him, and what befell him is everything changed. The rest of his life, the trajectory was altered. And that's kind of disheartening, both of those points. And that's why we have the third point, which we found in here. God is with you. I love Psalm 27. This is one of the scriptures that I want you to hang on your life in hearing this. The end of Psalm 27 is David. He's talking about all the bad things that are going on around him, all the oppressors, all the enemies. And then in the NASB, he says, I certainly believed, even with all that coming, even with all the storms, even though it was raining, even though the winds were sweeping, I certainly believed that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. See, he's not looking at God through his circumstances. He's looking through God at his circumstances. God stands before all of our circumstances, good and bad. When it's good, we give him thanks and glory. When it's bad, we give him trust. He is our refuge. He shields us. He protects us. He comforts us. I certainly believe that I would see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And then he says, it's self-talk we all need. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and let your heart take courage. Yes, wait on the Lord. Some of us just need to say that several times today. Just wait on the Lord, wait on the Lord, wait on the Lord. And like Paul, you might be waiting a long time. You might be waiting till the end. It might be on the other side of the veil. But I will wait on the Lord, and I will believe that I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Fourth, God's plans prevail. His plans are for your desires, even if you don't know what your desires are yet. The other scripture you can hang on your life, I'll throw 2 in. You got Psalm 27, Acts 19:21. You know what Paul tells his friends? I'm going to go to Jerusalem, I'm going to do all this stuff. He's talking about his plans. And in Acts 19:21, he says, I must also see Rome. Several times it's mentioned that Paul longs to see Rome with all of his heart. How are you going to get there? You're not going to get there in the way you thought you were going to get there, but that's where God's taking you. That's what God says when he stands next to him. When the Lord stands next to him, when he's in that jail, he says, you're going to Rome. I'm going to give you your heart's desire. I'm taking you somewhere. And then the other one is Acts 9:15. When Paul was called into ministry, a guy spoke over him named Ananias, not the chief priest, this other Ananias. And through God, he says, Paul will bear my name. Paul will be my witness to the Gentiles and kings. And that seemed far-fetched. Paul's like, I'm never going to talk to kings. How would I talk to kings? By playing hot potato. He's going to hot potato his way to Jerusalem, to this governor, to someone else, and eventually in his life, he would stand before the king of the world, the worldly, secular king of the world, and proclaim Jesus Christ to him. That God is taking Paul home to his forever home, but first he's swinging through Rome. And God will bring you home to a stormless land of peace, but he has some Romes in mind for you yet, for you to go to, for you to stay in, for you to impact. It wasn't in Jamaica, but maybe a handful of years ago, there was a really bad hurricane, massive hurricane in Mexico Beach, Florida, and it wrecked everything. Like the whole place was just wrecked. And I remember the pictures, and I looked the pictures up this week because there's this one guy, he was like Noah's Ark type of guy. Everyone mocked him and thought he was silly because he built a house there. And you're supposed to build it for like a hurricane rating 5 or maybe a hurricane rating 4. And he's like, I'm going to do like a 6. And I'm like, that doesn't even exist, bro. And he's like, that's all right. So the nails are supposed to be like this long, and he does like double everything. Every screw was doubled. Every nail was doubled. The windows were supposed to be like this thick, and he's like, make them thicker. Every wall was that way. He designed everything in his house to withstand a storm that didn't exist. Well, then the storm blew in. Do we have pictures of that? Do we have those? There's his house after the storm. It was the only one. It had 2 pieces of damage. One piece of damage was it had stairs that intentionally broke away because he didn't want his deck torn up. So those would break away, and then he had one crack in a window. And I like this second picture right here because I'd never noticed it before. I was looking at the pictures. You see what's behind his house? It's another house that's less damaged than anything else. Because that's the thing, that's kind of the Christian call, is that our foundation is so strong that we're going to encounter storms and we're going to face them differently. It's like our nails are longer. And I think it's so interesting because Jesus was hung on the cross by 9-inch nails. And it's like, I got even longer nails to affix myself to you. And that when we suffer well and face the storms well in our life, that other people take refuge in us and see hope and faith and get to rest in that. It's like a blazing sun in a desert that's hitting us, and then we stand before it as shade, and it casts a refuge for people behind us. And they enter into that, and they are less harmed as well. It's this beautiful call, and we see it in Paul's life, that he's going to be faithful, that he's going to walk upright, that he's going to keep the hope, and he's going to keep the faith no matter the weather. No matter what storms blow in or blow out of his life. And we're invited to do the same thing, that God is not done with Paul, nor will he ever be, and God is not done with any of us, and in truth, he never will be either. So what I want to do is pray, and so if you'll just close your eyes, relax, it's going to be a little bit longer prayer maybe. Don't fall asleep, because you know what happens if you do. What I'm going to pray for you is, I'm just going to read Psalm 27. Again, I alluded to it. I'm just going to read the whole thing from the NIV. Just David in this time of lament, in this time of storm, and how it ends with him taking hope. And so some of you just zone out and it's fine. Some of you let this really wash over you. Some of you might need to open your hands and put them in front of you. Some of you really need to receive this, not because it's my word, because it's God's word. And it's what we do in the time of storm. I imagine that this was in Paul's reflections. We're told that in prison sometimes he would sing. I imagine it was Psalms of David that he would sing, and I bet this one came to his mind. So here's Psalm 27, a Psalm of David. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advanced against me to devour me, is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. When storms blow in, would be my words. Verse 4, one thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon the rock like that house that's stacked behind the other house. His house goes first. He takes the assault, so that we can take the refuge. Verse 6, then my head will be exalted above the enemies who surround me. At his sacred tent I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Hear my voice when I call, Lord. Be merciful to me and answer me. My heart says of you, seek his face. Your face, Lord, I will seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not reject me or forsake me, God, my Savior. Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Teach me your way, Lord. Lead me in a straight path because of my oppressors. Do not turn me over to the desire of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, spouting malicious accusations. Paul knows that. Now, verse 13. I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. Amen.